What is up, everybody? It's Drew. Happy Tuesday at the time of this recording. It is almost Wednesday. And just for reference, you all know this. I hate misinformation. I hate when it's spread. I can't stand it when somebody with a following spreads misinformation, gives out inaccuracies, says things that just aren't true, gets things halfway right. And I'll admit, I'm no paragon of absolute knowledge myself, but sometimes I just have a problem letting it go. And so if you follow any gaming channels at all, Top Hat Gaming Man of all of the YouTube channels out there is one of them. And he did a video that I will link down in the description. It is titled Mortal Kombat Trilogy's Confusing Legacy. What actually happened here? And there was a lot happened here, and he got a lot of it wrong. So, I mean, not a lot of it, just some fairly important points were wrong, and there were some other inaccuracies I noticed in this video. And so we're going to start with Mortal Kombat 3. The video itself is actually an hour long. I'm just going to take the last third of it or so, and we'll skip some. We'll go through some, but some of it is funny, some of it is not. Actually, a lot of it's pretty good, but I couldn't help myself. So anyway, here we go. Jump scare in 3, 2, 1.
In 1990,
That's actually the first thing that I thought after watching this review was. All right. Anyway.
95, the inevitable happened.
Yep.
Mortal Kombat 3 arrived, and it did so with force. This wasn't just a sequel, it was a full-scale evolution. Bigger, bolder, faster, and bloodier. Mortal Kombat 3 took everything the series was known for and cranked it into overdrive.
Okay.
The visuals were sharper, the roster was larger, the combos were
bit.
deeper, and the tone was even darker.
I take exception to that part. So, yes, the roster was bigger. There were 15 playable characters, 14 plus one hidden, which is bigger than 12 from MK2. But I don't think the game was darker by any stretch of the imagination. You had a more urban setting, and the music was not as dark. I don't think it moved away from the kind of Asian theme, and even though it may not have had as vibrant color palettes, that doesn't alone make it darker.
It introduced new mechanics, new characters, and a new urban aesthetic
that
dragged Mortal Kombat out of the Mystics temples and into the gritty streets. By this point, Mortal Kombat wasn't just a fighting game franchise, it was an unstoppable pop culture phenomenon.
He's right about that. We had the Mortal Kombat movie that came out in 1995, and then later on, there were the cartoons, there were the comics, all of that stuff. The comics came long before MK3 did. So yeah, he is spot on there. Mortal Kombat was taking its place in pop culture at this time.
During the early planning stages for the game, the development team actually considered making the leap into full 3D graphics, but ultimately decided to stick with the tried and true digitized sprite style that made the series famous. That said,
I want you to notice, for future reference, I want you to notice the graveyard, okay? Just keep that in mind.
The game still marked a noticeable shift in tone and presentation. Visually, Mortal Kombat 3 moved away from the mystical East Asian influence of the first two games,
You said
instead adopting that grittier, more Western aesthetic.
Yep.
Even the soundtrack followed suit, ditching the traditional Asian motifs for a cold electronic edge.
That was
the
subtle
color
already.
palette was also far more muted,
I don't know
giving
about
the
that.
game that darker, almost industrial
Was it
tone.
dark? Western is not industrial, and it is not darker. It is not darker.
Characters look different too. While Mortal Kombat 2 had blended hand-drawn elements with digitized actors, Mortal Kombat 3 fully committed to heavy digitization, making
the characters were just as digitized. In fact, the sprites in Mortal Kombat 3 were smaller.
The cast look sharper and more grounded. Costumes evolved, with classic ninja outfits like Sub-Zero's being swapped out for a more modern tactical gear.
There was nothing tactical on his... Hang on a second.
Costumes
Hold on,
evolved,
hold
with
on.
classic ninja outfits.
There's nothing tactical about that. He just doesn't have his vest on. You know, he just... Sub-Zero shows up with no shirt and a scar.
It's like Sub-Zero's being swapped out for a more modern tactical gear. And for the first time in the series, 3 cyborg characters joined the roster, hammering home that futuristic cyberpunk vibe. But
cyberpunk? There's nothing... I'm sorry. There is nothing cyberpunk about cybernetic ninjas wearing chest protectors.
But more on them soon. Even the backgrounds got a technical upgrade. Many were created using pre-rendered 3D graphics.
He's right about that. That's a very good observation, and it's actually very cool that he noted that.
Pushing the arcade hardware to new visual heights. This wasn't just another Mortal Kombat. It was a reinvention of the brand's identity.
It was a good evolution. I don't think it was a reinvention. It was still... I mean, they added a run button and auto combos, but I don't think it was a reinvention.
A darker, more technological...
It wasn't darker.
More contemporary Mortal Kombat had arrived. One of the most noticeable changes in Mortal Kombat 3 wasn't the stages, the music, or even the gameplay. It was the cast. Several of the...
So it wasn't the urban setting, it wasn't any of that stuff that was markedly different, but it was the cast that was markedly different. Go on, Top Hat Gaming Man.
The series' original actors were suddenly nowhere to be seen, and this wasn't a creative decision, it was the result of royalty disputes.
Okay.
Ho Sung Pak, who had portrayed both Liu Kang and the original Shang Tsung, along with Philip Ahn, Mortal Kombat 2 Shang Tsung, Elizabeth Malecki, Sonya Blade, Caitlin Zemaya, who played Katana, Melina and Jade, and Daniel Pesina, who was practically half the original roster, playing Johnny Cage, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Reptile, Smoke, and Noob Saibot, all left midway after disagreements over how their likenesses had been used in the home console ports.
He's right. He is 100% right about that. There was the dispute, and, you know, typically you tend not to stay employed or contracted with somebody that you're suing.
No royalties meant no return. In fact, Daniel Pesina had already stirred the pot before Mortal Kombat 3 even launched by appearing in an advert for a rival fight.
No. The pot wasn't stirred. He wasn't fired for this. No. In fact, they said go do it. Like, he was not discouraged or anything from doing this. This had no impact whatsoever on his involvement in future Mortal Kombat games. None.
Game Bloodstorm. This cheeky move sparked the rumor
Cheeky, mate.
that he'd been fired by Midway, though in reality he'd already parted ways with them over the dispute. As a result, several characters had to be completely recast for Mortal Kombat 3. Eddie Wong stepped in as Liu Kang, Kerry Hoskins took over as Sonya Blade, and John Turk played both Shang Tsung and the new unmasked Sub-Zero. So while Mortal Kombat 3 introduced a host of new characters, it also came with a
cracking good
shift behind the scenes, and a clear reminder that even in the world of fighting games, the biggest battles sometimes happen off-screen.
It keeps going back to that. I'm surprised he never mentions the off-screen romance between Leah Montalongo and Brian Glenn, who was Shao Kahn. No mention of that.
When it came to gameplay, Mortal Kombat 3 pushed things even further. One of the biggest additions was the introduction of a brand new run button.
Yes, that sped things up for sure.
Paired with its own run meter. This mechanic was designed to address criticism from fans who felt that the previous games gave too much of an advantage to defensive players.
Yes, and I will agree with that 100%. That's something that, especially the MK1, the actual MK1, not the 2023 aberration. It was kind of like, okay, I'm in the corner, come get me. And, well, yeah. And, without being able to move quickly, there's a distinct lack of rush down. You can get trapped when someone gets up close, especially like Melina and Katana in MK2. You get close and they get in and they get close, you're going to have a bad time. But I mean, Jax was a top tier character and was just a zoning legend in that game. So let's go.
Now fighters could close the distance quickly, adding aggression and pace to matches. The meter drained when running forward, there was no running backwards. This is Mortal Kombat, not the Olympics, and also depleted slightly during extended combos. Speaking of combos, Mortal Kombat 3 introduced the now infamous chain combos.
Yep.
Or, as they were more commonly known as, dialer combos.
Dialer combos.
These
auto
were
combos.
preset button sequences that once started couldn't be interrupted. As soon as the first hit connected, the rest was practically guaranteed.
If you've ever watched me play Mortal Kombat, you know those extra hits aren't guaranteed, friends. You all know this. They don't call me Ted Dropsis for nothing.
Often ending in a powerful uppercut or knockback move that launched the opponent into the air, setting them up for additional juggle combos. To accommodate players of all skill levels, the game also featured a Choose Your Destiny screen during single-player mode, allowing players to select their preferred difficulty.
The first 4 fights had a different difficulty, yes.
Small touch, but one that helped make the game more accessible and replayable. And then there was the stage interaction, another first for the franchise. Certain stages allow players to uppercut their opponent through the ceiling, causing both fighters to crash into a brand new stage and continue to fight there. It was a clever touch that broke the linear flow of the usual level cycle. However, if the uppercut resulted in a knockout, no level transition would occur.
I would be hard-pressed to see that happen. Like, that's kind of hilarious. Like, you know, uppercut, boom, Shang Tsung wins. And like he hops up to the top of the screen and does a win pose. That goes without saying. Keen observation, mate.
The body stayed where it fell. These gameplay tweaks and features gave Mortal Kombat 3 a faster, more aggressive edge, rewarding offensive play while still leaving room for strategy and spectacle. It felt like a natural evolution of the formula, with
that works. Yeah. It's a little contradiction because it was revolutionized gameplay and now it's just evolution of the fighting game formula. But okay.
just enough new blood to keep things feeling fresh. When it came to finishing moves, Mortal Kombat 3 didn't just bring back the classics, it expanded on them. All of the iconic enders from Mortal Kombat 2 returned. Fatalities, babalities, and friendships were all present and accounted for.
Here it comes.
But this time around, players were also given a brand new, wonderfully ridiculous option. Animalities.
I'm sorry. Oh, this game has been around for 30 years, okay? Animality. And Nightwolf even says it in the movie. You know, like, what is he like? Find your animality, or whatever he says. But it's something about your animality. And here we've got animality. Yeah.
These were exactly what they sounded like. After winning a match, your fighter would transform into an animal and maul the opponent in gloriously over-the-top fashion. Sub-Zero turned into a polar bear.
I'm sorry, that's not over-the-top mauling. The fatalities were way worse.
Liu Kang became a dragon. It was violent, surreal, and totally in line with the franchise's taste for absurdity. But pulling off an animality
there it is again. Animality
wasn't easy. First, you had to perform a new feature called a Mercy, which restored a sliver of your opponent's health after 2 rounds of victory. If you beat them again after showing them Mercy, then you could unleash the animality.
Animality!
In other words, you had to win, and then choose to let them live, just so you could destroy them in a more humiliating way. Mortal Kombat logic at its finest. The game also introduced 3 new stage fatalities, which could be performed in the Subway, Bell Tower, and Pit 3 Arena, each one featuring gruesome environment-specific deaths that once again set Mortal Kombat apart from its more restrained competitors.
But, you know, I don't think these stage fatalities were as in-depth or, like, as gruesome as the MK2 stage fatalities, because, like, you had the Deadpool, like, you know, and the fact that it was the first stage in the game, right? It's like, that's just gruesome. Like, dude takes a dip in the Deadpool water and comes up like just bones, like totally melted away. And then the combat tomb, that's just a reverse pit, right? Just up to the spikes instead of down to the spikes. But the pit 2, you get the overtop view and the fall and the crash at the end. I mean, that's just wow. Okay. These are not the pit fatals in MK3 were not near as gruesome, I don't think.
But where Mortal Kombat 3 really pushed boundaries was in its obsession with secrets and hidden content. Enter the combat codes, 6-symbol codes that players could enter on the versus screen during 2-player matches. These codes could alter gameplay, trigger hidden fights, or just display strange and cryptic messages. They weren't random either. Many were shared through magazines, promotional material, and even arcade pinball machines.
Which I think that was really cool for Midway to do, was to like the way they were spread hints, the advertising in the media as well as in the games. Like that was that's something that not a lot of people talk about. I'm not saying that it's not well known. I am saying that it's just not talked about much. So, and this one is actually kind of interesting to me, and I want to check some of these later. I am not familiar with some of these. We got No Patience, which is a faster timer. I am not familiar with that. I'm not sure if this is from one of the home versions. It has to be. It has to be, because healing, there's no healing combat code in Arcade MK3. So I'm curious to which console this is for.
Released by Midway at the time. Yes, real life.
Now, some of these obviously are arcade codes, but not all of them.
Pinball machines were being used to leak Mortal Kombat secrets. Peak 90s. And then there was the Ultimate Combat Code, a 10-symbol input entered after the game over screen in single-player mode. If entered correctly, it unlocked a hidden playable character, Robot Smoke. This could be done by a player, or more likely by a cheeky arcade operator.
Well, you could disable hiddens. You could disable Smoke from the operator menu. I don't think you can enable him from the operator menu.
Who knew how to access the cabinet's diagnostic.
That's not hard to do. You open the cabinet and you hit the button.
Menu. That is, unless you're playing version 2.1. Where...
Okay, version 2.1 was the last public release.
The only way in was via the infamous EJB menu.
Now, do you remember how I talked about I hate misinformation? This is one of them. It said the only way you can access Smoke is through the EJB menu. Yes, you can enable him from the EJB menu, but you can also use the Ultimate Combat Code to enable him. And like I said, in the regular operator menu, you can disable them, but that's not the only way to do it. Come on.
Secret developer screen hidden behind a specific set of inputs. All of these secrets, codes, and mysteries only added to the mythos. They made Mortal Kombat 3 feel alive, unpredictable, and full of potential. Every time you played, you wondered, is there more hidden here? And with Mortal Kombat, the answer was almost always yes.
Mortal Kombat did like their hidden stuff, that is for sure.
By the time of Mortal Kombat 3, Shao Kahn was tired of losing after being defeated by Liu Kang in the Outworld tournament. The Evil Emperor...
Let's speed this up a little. We're going to speed this one up a little bit. Hold on. Go to 1.25.
Decided it was time to play his trump card, enacting a 10,000-year-old plan that had been lying in wait. The scheme? He would have his shadow priests, led by Shang Tsung, resurrect his long-dead queen Sindel, who had died young under mysterious circumstances.
Right.
But instead of reviving her in Outworld, her reincarnation would take place in Earthrealm. This loophole would allow Shao Kahn to physically cross into Earthrealm without breaking the rules of Mortal Kombat.
Hang on, we're gonna go to 1.5. We don't need the backstory.
Using Sindel's presence as a bridge between worlds. And the moment she returned, all hell broke loose. Khan reached across the dimensional veil and pulled Sindel back into his control. And in doing so began merging Earthrealm with Outworld. The result was devastating. Billions of souls were ripped from their bodies, leaving Earth a broken wasteland under siege. Only a few were spared, protected by Raiden, Earthrealm's guardian. But Raiden could only do so much. His power didn't extend into the Outworld, and now that Earth was potentially merged with it, he was powerless to directly intervene.
Well, it's not that his power didn't extend into the Outworld. I mean, he was in MK2. But anyway.
Instead, he turned to Earth's surviving warriors, fighters strong enough to resist Shao Kahn's influence and face his wrath head-on. To wipe out the last of humanity, Khan deployed extermination squads, hell-bent on hunting down and eliminating the survivors one by one. Raiden could protect their souls, but not their bodies. The warriors would have to fend for themselves. Only by defeating Shao Kahn could Earthrealm be restored. Out of a host of newcomers joining the roster, we have Cyrax, portrayed by Sal DeVita. He is one of 3 cybernetically enhanced assassins sent by the Lin Kuei clan, outfitted in bright
Lin Kuei, it's Lin Kuei.
yellow armor and loaded with internal weapon systems.
Bombs and nets. It's not a ton.
Cyrax was designed to hunt and eliminate rogue warriors,
And he
including his
sucked.
former ally Sub-Zero. He may be a machine, but what little humanity remains inside him is beneath buried layers of metal and code. Then there's Cabal, played by Richard DeVizio, a former member of the Black Dragon crime syndicate who now walks a different path. Horribly scarred and kept alive by a breathing apparatus, Cabal fights using dual hook swords and lightning speed. Once a villain, now something more ambiguous, Cabal walks the line between anti-hero and survivor. Nightwolf, also portrayed by Sal DeVita, is a Native American shaman and spiritual warrior. With the power to summon ethereal weapons and channel energy from the Great Spirit, Nightwolf serves as one of Earthrealm's most notable defenders. Sector, the red-clad predecessor to Cyrax, is the first of the Lin Kuei's cybernetic experiments. Ruthless, emotionless, and utterly loyal to his programming. Sector is the embodiment of the clan's vision for the future. A perfect killing machine. He's a walking death engine, armed with
Except in competitive play, he sucks.
missiles and flamethrowers, and will stop at nothing to eliminate his targets. Tyndale.
Oh, okay. We gotta slow it down, because this is where it gets good. Hold on.
Mentioned earlier, portrayed by Leah Montalongo, is the resurrected queen of Edenia and
Edenia,
the key to Shao Kahn's invasion of Earthrealm. Though originally named Musasha,
oh boy, that would be first off, it's muchacha, which is, I believe, Spanish for young woman or young lady. Okay, which is what Sindel or Leah Montalongo more likely was, a young woman. She was Leah was 19 at the time that they were doing the development for MK3. So saying that she was originally named Muchacha would be like saying that Cyrax and Sector were originally named Ketchup and Mustard, which, yeah, it said it on their, like, it said it in the early prototypes of the game. That's because they needed to put something in there, and, you know, the Mortal Kombat team never took themselves too seriously, so it was probably just having some fun. It's not like she was going to be Muchacha, Shao Kahn's resurrected bride.
In early development, the final version of Sindel is a gothic vision of power and tragedy, silver-haired, screaming like a banshee and wielding supernatural flight. Though she once ruled peacefully, her revival under Kahn's control turns her into a deadly puppet. But behind the malice, there's a glimmer of the queen she once was. Shiva.
Okay, I think. Oh man, I did not. I totally didn't mean to pause on the thong. My goodness, Drew. Come on, man. Oops. Hold on. Where's playback speed? There it is. Back to 1.5 we go.
Created using stop-motion animation, is a proud and powerful member of the Shokan race, the same four-armed species as Goro and Kintaro. Unlike her male counterparts, Shiva brings a more calculating, loyal presence to the battlefield. With ground pounds and brutal grabs, Shiva was the first playable female Shokan in the series, and she made sure you remembered it.
Yeah, because she was awful competitively.
Striker, played by Michael O'Brien, is by far the most grounded fighter in Mortal Kombat 3, a riot control officer equipped with grenades, batons, and a baseball cap that screams.
How is he grounded?
Early 90s Mall Cop. Striker is either the most underrated fighter in
Why don't we mention his why don't we mention the fact that, like, he has to pull up on his pants leg to do a roundhouse?
the franchise, or is the most hilariously out of place? But looks aside, he means business. Mortal Kombat 3 didn't just arrive, it launched with impact, backed by what would later be recognized by the Guinness World Records Gamers Edition as the largest promotional campaign for a video game at the time.
He's right about that. It's very very good media stuff.
Mortal Kombat 3 hit North American arcades in April of 1995 like a thunderclap. Expectations were sky high, and Midway made sure everyone knew about it. Naturally, the arcade version was just the beginning. The game was swiftly ported to home consoles, specifically the Genesis, Super Nintendo, and PlayStation. According to Ed Boon himself, the PlayStation version was nearly arcade perfect.
Ed was being very diplomatic there, I think. Maybe he said that, but he was, I mean, it was close, but not really. Yeah, I have to talk about, I don't want to talk about the last reaction critique review that I did.
Preserving the speed, visuals, and sound with remarkable accuracy. But there was a catch. Sony had struck a timed exclusivity deal with Midway, reportedly worth $12 million, which gave Sony Computer Entertainment the exclusive rights to release Mortal Kombat 3 on 32-bit platforms until the end of the first quarter of 1996. This meant that versions for the Sega Saturn, 3DO, and Atari Jaguar were all delayed, with plans to release them sometime in the second quarter of 96. Carrying on the tradition of simultaneous home launches from previous entries, Midway announced that the Genesis, Super NES, Game Boy, and Game Gear versions of Mortal Kombat 3 would hit shelves on Mortal Friday on October 13th, 1995.
I remember that. I remember October 13th, 1995. Story time. A little bit, sorry. I went to rent the game because there was a Blockbuster about 2 minutes from where I lived, and I must have called up there probably half a dozen times during the day to see if the shipment had come in yet that had the games. And that man that was working there that day had the patience of a saint. And I did end up renting both the Genesis and the Super Nintendo versions. And I ended up buying the Super Nintendo version from wherever I bought it from. I don't remember. But yeah, fun story. Mortal Friday.
It was an ambitious multi-platform push, but not all versions made it on time. The Game Gear version, in fact, never released in North America at all. Interestingly, publishing duties also shifted during this time. While Acclaim had handled home versions of the earlier games in North America, Williams Entertainment took over the 16-bit and portable releases of Mortal Kombat 3 domestically, though Acclaim still handled publishing in Europe. With that many moving parts, deals and delays, the release of Mortal Kombat 3 wasn't just a game launch. It was...
What they didn't mention was Probe Software being nowhere to be found on the Genesis. From the Genesis version. I believe both ports were done by Sculptured. So SNES and Genesis were done by Sculptured, which is a good piece of information to know. I'm not sure why that would be left out.
It was a strategic media event carefully orchestrated to dominate arcades, living rooms, and headlines alike. According to Replay magazine, it was the most popular arcade game in the United States by May of 1995. And that wasn't just hype, it was backed by cold, hard numbers. Mortal Kombat 3 was one of only 3 games to receive the American Amusement Machines Association Diamond Award for that year, an honor based solely on sales performance. Even more impressively, Mortal Kombat 3 was the highest grossing arcade cabinet conversion kit of 1995 in the US. That meant arcade operators weren't just upgrading their cabinets, they were making serious money from them. Home sales were equally explosive. Williams Entertainment, which handled the Super Nintendo and Genesis versions, reported 250.
That's the publishing, not the development.
50,000 copies sold in the first weekend alone. That figure instantly placed the game among the best-selling titles of 1995. And it didn't stop there. By November 23rd, the Super Nintendo version alone had sold over 1 million units, eventually going on to become the best-selling home video game of the year.
Sorry, I know, we got to
get
through this.
Critics and retailers alike took notice. Mortal Kombat 3 was even nominated for the Video Software Dealers Association's Video Game of the Year award for 95.
I will give him credit for this. He does talk about and get right a lot of stuff that is not as discussed. The awards and the sales figures and stuff like that. A lot of people talk about how, that Mortal Kombat 3 didn't perform as well as MK2 did in the arcade or on console, but he's throwing out actual sales numbers here. So, props.
It ultimately lost to Donkey Kong Country 2, but just being in that conversation proved how far Mortal Kombat 3 had pushed the series. It wasn't just a sequel, it was a juggernaut. Despite the commercial explosion surrounding Mortal Kombat 3, not everything about its release was met with applause.
Oh no?
There was some backlash from fans regarding certain elements of the game, and they made their opinions loud and clear.
Oh boy.
One of the biggest complaints was the absence of series favourites like Scorpion and Katana, which many found baffling. Their replacements, let's just say Striker the Riot Cop in cargo trousers, didn't exactly win hearts.
Hey, hold up. Don't be so mean to Striker, okay? All right. He's a riot cop, okay?
Critics and players alike scoffed at the inclusion of less charismatic newcomers and lamented the absence of beloved veterans. The new combo system, complete with dialer combos, also divided opinions. Some praised its speed, while others accused it of being clunky, restrictive, and too far removed from the raw, scrappy charm of earlier entries.
I don't ever recall it being called clunky. I remember it being called cheap. And I do remember that there was some valid criticism about the combo system. So he's right about that. I don't ever remember it being called clunky. Some skill issues like just memorizing button inputs and stuff like that. But you still had to be able to execute, right? From a competitive standpoint, you can know the material all you need, but unless you can actually execute, that's a totally different story. More to come.
Animalities, one of the game's flashiest new features, were often dismissed as ridiculous.
He said animalities. And of course it's ridiculous. It's Mortal Kombat. It's not very... I don't know. When people talk about things being ridiculous, it's like, dude, you can get hit by a spear like 15 times and still not die in this game. But turning into an animal? Totally off course.
And even the run mechanic drew criticism for disrupting the balance that fans had come to expect. Yet despite the murmurs of dissatisfaction, the game still scored big with reviewers upon launch. Electronic Gaming Monthly gave the PlayStation port Game of the Month, and even IGN, while scathing about the design direction, admitted the port itself was a technical marvel. But not all critics loved it. Some pointed out a growing sense of stoutness. GamePro declared it was neither as fresh as Tekken, nor as deep as Street Fighter.
Yeah, but let's look at Tekken. Okay, hold on.
Declared it was neither as fresh as Tekken.
Yeah, we have this conversation all the time, especially like McLovins and myself. this the Mortal Kombat games aged so very well. And yes, the design did not go 3D and things like that. And Street Fighter and its animation aged so well. This right here, yes, I know it's beloved and I know it's early 3D, but the early 3D stuff did not age well. And I know people still play this game, but I know people also play classic Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter going back 30 plus years.
Tekken, nor as deep as Street Fighter, while Next Generation stated the franchise was in dire need of reworking. Mortal Kombat 3 was clearly the most refined and mechanically layered entry in the series to date. Yet with refinement came a creeping sense of fatigue. The shock factor that had once defined Mortal Kombat was starting to wear thin for some, and the once rebellious upstart was beginning to look like it may very well struggle to keep pace in a rapidly evolving genre in the future. But it wasn't the end of the classic.
I should have double speeded this. I'm sorry. Don't strike me, Top Hat Gaming, man. It is fair use.
Era quite yet. With Mortal Kombat 3 receiving a mixed reception and criticism directed at missing fan favourites, Midway quickly went back to the drawing board.
No, they did not. Midway did not go back to the drawing board based on fan backlash. Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 was already in development when MK3 was released. There was a shortened period. It was 6 months from the arcade release to the console, as opposed to the typical close to a year between arcade to console ports. And because of that, they knew there would be backlash from the operators, more so than people, where's the ninjas? But they did not go back to the drawing board. The game was already in development. And not only was it in development, it was offered as a free upgrade to arcade operators. I don't know why that has to be omitted. That is the piece of misinformation that bothers me more than anything about MK3 and UMK3.
The result was Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, a refined, updated release in arcades later that same year in 95.
Refined? Okay.
While not a full sequel, it functioned as something of a director's cut. Address him.
Director's cut? They added stages and characters.
But roster complaints, tightening gameplay mechanics, and reasserting Mortal Kombat's place at the top of a fighting game food chain. First and foremost, the character roster was dramatically improved.
They added the ninjas back. Dramatically improved? Okay, we do get Ed Boon's favorite Scorpion, and we get my favorite Human Smoke.
Missing icons like Scorpion, Kitana, and Jade were brought back into the fold, alongside new additions such as Ermac, Human Smoke, and Rain.
This is a rollback. This is what is that? Ultimate Cup. Rain, in case y'all don't remember, Rain was not in the arcade version. Rain was just that reskinned reptile in the intro with the funny nameplate.
This gave fans over 20 characters to choose from, a far cry from the gutted lineup of Mortal Kombat 3. Gameplay refinements came thick and fast. While the controversial dial combo system remained, it had been better balanced this time.
First, you said that this is kind of feels like a contradiction, because he said that the dial combo system it threw off the balance, but now somehow adding jump starters just refines that balance. Okay.
Around. Some of the more overpowered moves were toned down, and characters could now launch air combos with greater fluidity. New gameplay modes were also introduced to spice things up. The 2-on-2 endurance style battles and a tournament mode for up to 8 players brought extra replayability to the arcade.
The 8 versus 8 sucked. It was 1 round combat. You didn't even get to finish your opponent. It was 1 round combat for each bracket entry, and it was single elimination. The only good part was once you beat it, that was the only way in arcade UMK3 you could get the ultimate demonstration, or whatever that's called, where they do all of the finishers, the very last treasure.
Okay, cabinets. The popular
Supreme demonstration, that's it.
Uppercut stage transitions returned as well, allowing players to smash each other into new arenas mid-match with brutal flair. The visual presentation also received a polish. Several new stages were added, including the desert, the waterfront, and the ominous graveyard.
The graveyard was already in MK3. And there's Rain again in Ultimate Cup.
While existing stages from Mortal Kombat 3 made a return. Although the game still used the same digitized sprite-based visuals, tweaks were made to make transitions smoother and hit detection more responsive. A new shout.
What? Hit detection more responsive? The game engine did not change. Can we listen to that again? Hold on.
Digitized sprite-based visuals, tweaks were made to make transitions smoother and hit detection more responsive. A new Shao Kahn's Lost Treasures reward screen was added to the end of the arcade ladder playthroughs, offering a fun mix of jokes, secret battles, and additional content for the most dedicated players.
Of course.
The arcade release was followed by a variety of home console ports. The Sega Saturn version was widely praised for its faithfulness to the arcade original.
No, the Sega version was terrible.
While the Super Nintendo and Genesis versions, though limited by hardware, still managed to provide a solid Mortal Kombat experience for fans.
No, it didn't. The Genesis was a buggy mess, and the Super Nintendo wasn't much better, and we didn't get Shiva. I think one or maybe both versions also are missing animalities. I can't remember for sure.
Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 didn't reinvent the wheel, but it perfected the blueprint Midway had been building since 1992. For many, it remains the definitive version of the original Mortal Kombat trilogy.
Now he's right about that.
The game had addressed fan demands, refined the combat to its sharpest form yet, and provided the most robust and complete Mortal Kombat.
Let's see. Did I miss anything there? Nope.
Combat experience of the era. So now we have talked about the original Mortal Kombat trilogy, let's talk about what followed it. A game titled Mortal Kombat Trilogy.
Wow.
Mortal Kombat Trilogy was released in 1996. And although featuring an all-new title, it is technically the second and final major revision of the Mortal Kombat 3 formula, following on from the refinements of Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. Available on PlayStation, Nintendo 64, Sega Saturn, and PC, with smaller ports arriving on the Gamecom and the R-Zone of all things, this version attempted to be the ultimate compilation of the original Mortal Kombat era, building on the mechanics and story frameworks of Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. Trilogy would bring back even more characters and stages from the earlier Mortal Kombat.
That's a screenshot right there from the I think the Saturn version of Trilogy. Look at the life bars. God, that's disgusting.
At a Mortal Kombat 2 games, essentially functioning as a greatest hits package for fans of the series. The game's soundtrack was a patchwork of music from Mortal Kombat 2 and Mortal Kombat 3, with many tracks preserved, particularly in the CD-ROM versions of the game. However, players quickly noticed that several of the songs didn't match their intended arenas, as they had in the original arcade releases. Surprisingly, none of the music from the original Mortal Kombat was used at all.
That's not surprising at all, because the second and third game, so 2, 3, and UMK3 used the DCS sound system, where the original Mortal Kombat did not. So that makes actually it makes perfect sense that it would not have made it over to CD so quickly or so well.
CD-ROM editions used Red Book audio directly from the disc, providing high-quality CD sound. That said, the tracks were noticeably slowed down in both tempo and pitch. This was due to the fact that when converting the Mortal Kombat 3 tracks to CD audio, they were down-sampled without properly adjusting the playback rate.
And it was just the MK3 tracks.
To preserve the original speed, resulting in a subtly warped listening experience that audiophiles and longtime fans were quick to notice. Mortal Kombat Trilogy introduced a number of new mechanics and refinements to the established formula, the most notable being the addition of the aggressor bar.
That's not a refinement. There were no refinements made. The hitboxes were funky, and the aggressor bar, it's banned in competitive play, but I guess it's a fun little lark.
This meter gradually fills during battle, filling twice as fast if your opponent is blocking, and once full, temporarily boosts your character's movement speed and damage output. It was an attempt to reward aggressive playstyles and further differentiate Trilogy from its predecessors.
That's true.
Several characters received new special moves, often using previously unused animations or simple alterations of existing ones. However, not every returning...
Now, why did he show that with the riot gun and not the double, not the double grenade with like 100 frames of recovery? Okay, Stryker got the baton, or got the riot gun in UMK3, and then he got the double grenade, which was a combination of high and low grenade at the same time in Trilogy. But that wasn't shown. It burns me up.
Move made it through unscathed. Sub-Zero's iconic spine fatality was included, but completely censored.
Yeah, but it was censored in UMK3 as well.
Workaround presumably done to avoid reanimating the gory finish from scratch.
So, no, it was done, because if you remember, and I read this in a magazine article, I just can't remember which magazine article it was. This was done, so like the lights go out, and then Shao Kahn laughs after you hear an obvious head being ripped off. And that's a tongue-in-cheek way of making fun of the ESRB and like, oh, here comes the spine rip. Better turn the lights off. That's what it was. There was a little bit of development rush too, but you've seen the way Midway did some of their fatalities. It would have been very easy to keep the lights on and just have him like high punch, grab, victory pose, and call it a day. But they turned the lights out on purpose.
Mortal Kombat Trilogy also debuted the Brutality, a savage new finisher that sees the player unleash a rapid-fire combo barrage until the opponent literally explodes. This over-the-top edition would later be retrofitted into the 16-bit ports of Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3,
and I wish they hadn't been.
Time. While nearly all the previous stage fatalities returned, the Pit 2 was conspicuously absent, likely for the same reasons as the censored spine rip.
No, not for the same reasons as the censored spine rip, because spine rip was censored in UMK3. I'm not going to repeat myself again. The whatever. It's just.
Terms of environments, Trilogy pulled from across the franchise, offering players access to most stages from Mortal Kombat 2, Mortal Kombat 3, and Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3.
Oh, wait a minute, missed it. You got wait a minute. Hold on, this is great. You gotta really pay attention here, okay? You gotta really pay attention.
Pit 2 was conspicuously absent, likely for the same reasons as the censored spine rip. In terms of environments, Trilogy pulled from across the franchise,
here we go.
offering players access to most stages from Mortal Kombat 2, Mortal Kombat 3, and Ultimate Mortal Kombat.
Right here. That's a Mugen. He's showing us a Mugen game. I mean, look, you see the difficulty, whatever. Now he's showing us Mugen games. This is great.
Kombat 3. However, only 4 classic arenas from the original Mortal Kombat made the cut. Despite the game's aim to be a comprehensive compilation, certain missions were seemingly unavoidable. Alongside the return in Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 roster, including previously hidden and console-exclusive characters, Mortal Kombat Trilogy further expanded the playable lineup by reintroducing Raiden and Baraka, both appearing exactly as they did in Mortal Kombat 2, with one key update: brand new running animations designed specifically for Trilogy.
And auto combos.
Was Johnny Cage, absent from Mortal Kombat 3 due to Daniel Bacina's legal dispute with Midway, who now re-entered the fight portrayed by new actor Chris Alexander. Interestingly, Johnny Cage retained most of his Mortal Kombat 2 moveset, with the
Why is that interesting? Why wouldn't he retain it? Baraka and Raiden did. And then like classic characters like Kung Lao, well, with the addition of the one frame Superman move, Jax, and Kano, they all got new moves. But like, why is it surprising that Johnny Cage would keep his moveset? It kind of defined him.
Exception of his infamous split punch. This move was omitted entirely since characters from Mortal Kombat 3 and Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 lacked animation frames for being struck in the groin.
That's correct.
Despite this, Cage became something of a Trilogy exclusive.
What? A Trilogy exclusive? I mean, okay.
Being the only newly introduced fighter not seen in Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. Boss characters also received a surprising promotion. Goro, Kintaro, Motaro, and Shao Kahn were fully playable right from the start in most versions of the game. A first for the series. However, the Nintendo 64 version restricted this feature slightly, offering only Motaro and Shao Kahn as unlockables via a cheat menu.
No, they weren't unlockable via a cheat menu. Human Smoke and Chameleon were unlockable via the cheat menu, but you could also morph into Human Smoke from Robot Smoke anyway, and then Chameleon and Smoke also had their own ultimate combat codes, which I'm surprised he doesn't cover that. I'm not surprised, actually, he doesn't cover that. But the ultimate combat code on the N64, there were 2 of them, I believe, or maybe there was just one. I can't remember if one unlocked them both or if there were 2, but it unlocked Smoke and or Chameleon. I can't say for sure if it was both or if it was one, and there were 2 of them. I think it was just the one. But Shao Kahn and Motaro were only unlockable via not via cheat menu, but within the game itself. After you chose a character, if you were on a certain stage, you could do a button input combination for each of them, and you could morph into Shao Kahn that way, or Motaro that way.
Additionally, players on PlayStation, PC, and Saturn could access alternate versions of Jax, Kung Lao, Kano, and Raiden from earlier entries, though Raiden, Jax, and Baraka lacked proper run cycles. Instead, they simply sped up their...
Wait, what? Wait a minute, what did he say?
only Motaro and Shao Kahn as unlockables via a cheat menu. Additionally, players on PlayStation, PC and Saturn could access alternate versions of Jax, Kung Lao, Kano and Raiden from earlier entries, though Raiden, Jax and Baraka lacked...
Before he said Raiden and Baraka had their own running animations, and now he's saying that they're just... Make up your mind.
Proper run cycles. Instead, they simply sped up their standard walk animation.
Faster.
A rather janky compromise for modernization. Mortal Kombat Trilogy also introduced 2 new secret characters, depending on the platform. Most versions featured...
Hey, there's Mugen.
Chameleon, a semi-transparent male ninja whose moves and appearance cycled between all the classic pilot-swapped warriors. Yep. Chameleon was unlocked using a hidden button...
More Mugen. Why?
Combo. Meanwhile, the Nintendo 64 version swapped him out for Chameleon with a K, a translucent female ninja who shifted between Katana, Melina, and Jade mid-fight. Mortal Kombat Trilogy received a wide range of critical responses, with reception often hinging on the specific platform in question. GamePro, for example, praised the enormous roster, the inclusion of the aggressor mechanic, and the application of new features to old characters. While they noted the occasional slowdown and muted music, they ultimately concluded that the game delivered the brutal fan service people expected. Despite its divisive critical reception, Mortal Kombat Trilogy saw commercial success, particularly on the Nintendo 64, where it launched a drought of competitive titles. Mortal Kombat Trilogy stands today as both a celebration and a swan song for the original era of the franchise.
Yes.
It was the last major entry to use digitized actors and 2D sprite-based combat before the series made the leap to 3D.
And that's where we're going to end it. That is it. So there is a lot of repetition. I can't believe this video is 45 minutes long. I should have gone double speed on some of this stuff. But I hope people understand that stuff like this further, misinformation further, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't even put this video up, because I'm not trying to be too critical of reviews, because I'm sure he did what he could, but a little more research could have been done. I mean, there's been videos that get it right. There's been countless videos that get it right. But why we're doing this, I don't know. So anyway, we're going to end this video the way that we started it, with that little disclaimer. And I realize now that disclaimer is spelled wrong on the red capital letters at the top. The rest of it, I believe, is spelled correctly. I hope it's fair use to use an image I found on the internet. It's a disclaimer, not a disclaimer. But anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Don't unsub if you didn't. But as always, thanks, and I'll catch you next time. Take care.